Where are the does at? Where are the does? I think that is the question that's on everybody's mind. Those are the questions I'm getting right now on Facebook and from my friends and phone calls and text messages. Where are the deer at? Where are the does at? It's 70 degrees outside. I think yesterday it didn't hit 70, but today it's going to hit 70. Tomorrow it's going to hit 70. If you're watching on Facebook Live right now, we go to our Facebook, which is Chris Brackett's Land Life. On Instagram and Facebook. Check those out. Send us messages. Tell us about your stories. This is how we're getting the questions and the information that we've got going on right here in front of us. The question that we are going to dive into right now on November 6th of 2023 is, it is unseasonably hot, and where the does at? Where the does at? Well, here's your hot take of where the rut is and where the does are at. In central Illinois, right here where we are, and I've been talking to people from Kentucky, Minnesota, Missouri, Iowa on a daily basis. These are my normal conversations. This is why we've decided to do the podcast Land Life, and we're bringing you the whitetail breakdown of the rut right now. Where the does at? The does are off the top of these hills, off the top of these ridges, heading down to the bottoms in the thickets where they can have water, where they can hide from the bucks. What does that look like, right? When it's cold, I just had a discussion. I just asked for a topic from one of my friends. One of my friends and one of his friends, very highly educated, very top tier thinkers, have dreamed of hunting whitetails and researched hunting big Midwestern whitetails their entire lives. They're from down south. One of them has moved up here. I met him through a client, through being a client. He got a hold of me. I'm a realtor in Illinois, a broker in Illinois with Herman Brothers Realty. He got a hold of me, was interested in a farm. We became really good friends. I started looking for particular farms. He had a budget that he wanted to stick to. He said, listen, my dream is to hunt 150-inch and bigger whitetails. I don't mind going after these better farms that are maybe the 1%. I need hundreds and hundreds of acres. Because that is, I think, the thought in hunting these big deer. And really, that isn't necessarily the case. It's having the right pieces, 60 acres, 100 acres, 150. And we went out and bought the right pieces of property. I took him out. I taught him what to look for. Then we went together as a team and bought these properties. I helped get him into what his dream was. And now I'm getting feedback from this gentleman and his friends that they're hunting these perfect farms, things that I would buy. When a client calls and says, I need a farm that you would buy, that is how I look at the farms. And then if they're a player or not for those type of farms, you're going to pay a little bit more for those farms, but you're going to keep that equity in what you're going to put into it and how the quality is, because you're just not going to get that quality. I tell you all that to tell you this. I'm talking to them today. Big buck hits the ground last night. They're seeing the same thing I am from a couple days ago when I knocked down one of my target bucks that was 5.5 years old. He was in a bottom heading up to a top and then going to go over the top and then get in this other thicket. Now, the hot take on this is, where are the does? They're all in big doe groups in bedding areas. What are bedding areas? Well, I think it's a misconception when you think, I'm going to look for doe bedding areas. I'm going to look for these bedding areas. I have to find these bedding areas. Let me give you a little piece of advice, people. The bedding areas are the places that you don't go, that your kids don't go, that your scent doesn't drift down into, that you don't ride side-by-sides within 200 or 300 yards of them. Where people don't go will become the bedding area for whitetails that are wanting to be left alone. You can outsmart doe groups that have had their fawns on the edge of a field or behind a barn, and you can outsmart them, and they're going to stay right there. But when the does are getting ready to come into estrus, which is the rut, are does being bred right now? Absolutely. But the does that are getting harassed by all the little bucks, the teenagers that are walking around with a stiffy, that are chasing them around, doing what I call piranha phase, which is not leaving any doe alone or a button buck, they'll harass every deer that's not going to fight them off or posture them. So if this is happening, and we were to do the same thing, let's say in humans, you would have this thing where all these young boys, all these young males are chasing around all these pretty smelling, blonde haired brunettes, redheads. They're just all sparkly up. They're TikToked up. They're influencer. They're what we think about when we think about, ooh, attractive, right? Well, really all the deer are going on are the smell. They're coming into estrus. This is the first time I've ever smelled this. They've been able to participate. Last year, their mom was kicking them away because they were a button buck. And this year, they're getting to like be in the game. But the problem is that they don't really have anything to do. So the little bucks, the 1.5-year-olds, the spikes, the 6-pointers, the little baby 8-pointers, even the 2-year-olds, they don't really get to participate. Yes, every once in a while, if they're persistent and they don't get shot by somebody else, they're able to breed a doe. It happens all the time. I got reports of it yesterday of a spike buck, a 1.5-year-old buck breeding a doe. Well, what is really going on and happening there? It's just a doe that the bigger boys haven't found, or maybe she was living in a ditch somewhere and they found this doe that is in the absolute peak of her cycle of being bred. I'm talking about when that temperature internally of that doe is ready to conceive. That's when these bigger, more mature deer, 5, 6, 7-year-old deer are, those dream deer are absolutely fighting to the death and will not leave this doe. They can tell down to the minute that these does are coming into estrus. So when people start talking about the does are in estrus, it is happening for literally a week and a half. But in your populations of does, you are going to have ones that are at different temperatures. And if you know any the younger guys that aren't having kids out there yet, or the older guys that have been through in vitro and been through trying to have a baby and trying to get pregnant, and all you married guys out there, like, you're trying. And when you're trying, the internal temperature of the females is such a big deal in ovulation. And that is what these bucks are programmed as: big, furry, hairy beasts to get their genes onto the offspring and fight to the death over it. It becomes that in depth. A lot of people, I think they just go, when's the rut? When's the rut? No, it comes down to each doe. How much pressure do the deer feel? I think it has to do with how running scared they are, how much they're hunted, how much they're messed with. And the more comfortable these does are, kind of the more they'll put up with. And the more they'll put up with on your property, the more comfortable they are, the more they'll put up with the buck drama. And I think that's where high managed properties that are really not very messed with, like my farm, essentially, it's very pressured from all sides. Couple good neighbors, they're just doing their best to hunt. They don't own the property. And they're still getting pressured. And so it's not like it's no pressure, but it's least amount of pressure in the middle of my farm, down by the creek, down in these ditches, down in these draws. And that's what we're going to talk about in this hot take. This has been about 8 minutes. So one last minute on the hot take of what's going down and breaking down, so you guys can listen to the rest of the podcast. But you guys that are headed hunting and you only got 10 minutes, this is what's going down. If I was to pick a spot right now on where to hunt, I would find the ridge that's wide open, a big oak ridge, a big pine ridge, where I shot my deer, and all the deer wanted to be on both sides of those ridges. One, they wanted to be down in the bottom. If you listen to the other podcasts, on podcast 7 or 8, I was talking about the little does that were eating old leaves and drinking water, stagnant water down the bottom of these creeks, and the buck standing over top when I shot them. This is what's happening out there. That was the second or third doe that I watched go to the bottom of a ditch and eat leaves. Because why? They're not big in calories. They're not, it's like a girl going, it's hot out. I got my bikini on. I don't need a big fat sandwich or pizza or whatever. They're just eating something to keep alive and have something to chew on while they're laying down. This is what's happening out there because it's 70 degrees. There isn't one deer I know of out there that needs food because the fatness on these deer from eating acorns has been incredible this year. Even the picked cornfields, even the picked bean fields. Picked beans, you need a hard freeze to really make that bean preferable to the white-tailed deer. You need your standing beans. They need a hard frost that we should get in the next week and a half. And then you'll see them really key in on beans. While you're sitting over bean fields and you're watching deer just kind of mosey through them and pick, and they're not really eating. They don't have to eat. They're just getting up and getting out into these wide open spots so they can see bucks coming to harass them or other doe groups. Because if a doe goes and hangs out with a bunch of other does, then those bucks are going to be more likely to leave them alone and give them a little break. Because right now, if they're singled out and they're hiding in a ditch, they're getting chased and they're just getting raped. They're getting abused by these antlered, horny bucks. Horny, dad joke. Horny antlers. They're getting harassed by these horny bucks. And the little ones, the big ones, whatever. The bigger ones are literally the big elk on the hill that says, let's walk down there and pick out whichever one we want. That's truly happening, but it has to do with how close they are to that ovulation period. And then those big boys are going to fight over that one. The more that become into that perfect ovulation period of breeding for big, for the year, those big boys, there's more of them that are going to spread out. That's what's coming next. That's the lockdown. So if it were me, I would find out where you could still really kind of get away with a good wind. I really need to preface this little statement by wind is key. The consistencies of the wind. Can you get away with going into the bottoms? Are you willing to risk your entire farm to go right down to the bottoms next to the creek? You can't really beat the wind. So how do you try to hunt the bottoms, but off of the X, that you can shoot the X with the consistent wind? That's my disclaimer. I'm not telling you to invade the bottoms, but I have a lot of people like Dougie asking me this morning, hey, I'm just going to stay out. You think that's a good move, just staying out and watching these, this timber to make a move? No, because by the time you decide with your intel that you just witnessed and you make a move, you're going to be behind. So you better be anticipating. So this is your warning. Anticipate right now. It's hot out. The does are off the tops. They're more in the bottoms. They don't have to come out to eat. Invade. Go. Invade. Be the trail camera. You guys not getting pictures? I haven't had a picture on my trail camera in like 3 or 4 or 5 days. What's wrong? I literally just looked at mine and went, why isn't the walnut stand having any pictures? Either the batteries are dead, which I don't think it is, or someone stole it, which I don't think happened, or it's not picking up what's happening because the deer are running more crazy than being on patterns. I have to look at the intel as well to share with you guys. My cameras in my bulletproof spots, like my kill plot that is famous for all the buck activity and whatever, that thing has had a shooter buck in it for the last 5 or 6 days. And they're just cruising across, picking up a doe, checking on the status of the does that are just picking on the clover, picking on the greens. And so if you're going to go in these bottoms, if you're going to go on these creek beds, I would hunt side hill. I would hunt where your wind is still able to get up and out of there. Remember, these deer aren't moving from point A to point B. I don't think it's time with this hot weather to be in those pinch points or those funnels. What are pinch points and funnels? Those are places where they're going from A to B, and they're really just traveling, cruising. They've got off these couple does and they're out searching the world for another girlfriend. I don't think that's happening. Nothing I see is telling me that they're out and cruising these super cruise pinch points. So Find those areas that are the thickest stuff on your property that you know does love to go to when feeling pressure. Find those places and go sit them. Go be the trail camera. Go have fun. Enjoy it. This only happens once a year. All that stuff you've been waiting for a year, for the past year. This is the time that you wish last year, if you kept a journal, that you would say, man, if I only would have known, man, my trail camera just didn't pick these up, but I saw these deer doing this. This is the time where you go back in your memory and go right back to those spots that you wish you always would have hunted. All those places that you hung those stands because there was so much deer sign when you showed up after gun season in late November, and you were like, man, I wish I was here when this was happening. Right now is the time to go. I don't care if it's 70. I don't care if it's 70. This is the time to go and invade, but make sure that you have a favorable wind. You can't beat these bigger deer with a messed up wind. They're going to have all these does around them. The does are not on a mission. The bucks will give you a little bit of a free pass, but you have to capitalize on it, okay? That's kind of my hot take. That's kind of my 10 to 15 minutes of what's really kind of going on. The does are hiding. That's what you need to know. They're hiding. I talked about it yesterday on episode 8, where I was explaining, like, if I cut my nephews loose in the woods, if I went to an area where I could cut them loose and in 30 seconds, I turned my head and I turned back around and those dudes were able to hide in the brush somewhere and I couldn't see them, that's a great place to think about where to hang a stand or go in with a tree saddle. Or I'm a big what do they call it? Somebody that really is for something, a proponent. I don't know what they call it, but I would take 3 sticks in, 3 lone wolf sticks, a fast, easy up quality product like a Novex or a Lone Wolf, and I would throw that up on a tree, get 10, 15 feet up, hunt. I don't take a backpack in. I just wear what I wear, whatever I have in my pockets, and I observe what's going on. And then you can pull those 3 sticks down in that stand, and if you're hunting all day, you can go move to that place where those does all were and those bucks were cruising and go have fun with it. If you are, if you're looking to go get into it, that's how you do it. If you're hunting state ground right now, that's how you do it. If you're picking apart a new property that you just got, or a lot of guys I'm talking to are driving up from Florida and Georgia and Louisiana. Be mobile. These guys are mobile. These guys have big competition down there for small deer most of the time in the South, and they're not scared of going to do the work. They've got a packable system, a fast packable system. You take 3 sticks in, you go in that sucker, and you go up that tree, and you hunt it in the morning, you hunt it in the evening, you stay there all day, you take that intel and say, yeah, this is a good spot. I had every buck come by at 20 and 30 yards. It just wasn't the right buck. Dude, you need to hunt that again until you shoot that big deer when that wind's right. If that's not the spot and they're up 100 yards, go get closer to that, try to get 20, 30 yards off where these deer are moving, and then leave that stand in there. I mean, if you're hunting on your lease or private ground, leave that stand there. It's good to go. If you get that wind, you can go hunt it. Go back to the truck, get another, go back home, whatever, go buy another stand. It's so much more cost effective to have a couple of these fast sets and portable sets that you can go throw one up, hunt there. If you have to, leave the stand up, pull the sticks. You can carry the sticks in really easy and throw them up. If you're really, in that, health wise where you can do that and you're still a young man. I mean, I did it this year. I got horrible shoulder problems with nerve damage and spine injections with my back. But I'm feeling really great this year. And I did that. First time I went in there and did that, beginning of the year, October 5th, I shot at a monster. And I didn't have a stand in that location. And I think that intel is the number one thing you can do right now. Who wrote the rules for you to just go out there and stand next to a tree with the wind in your face to observe what you need to and maybe have 3 sticks and a stand with you and hunt right there on the ground and go, oh my gosh, I watched this hot doe go into this draw, and I watched 3 bucks on her. That is the time of year right now that we're talking about, November 6th, 2023. It's hot. Go do that. And I bet you that doe, what normally happens in a scenario like that for me is if I go hunt with my stands and I watch a doe hot, and she comes through and she's got 2 or 3 little bucks on her. This is kind of at broad daylight, or just beginning of daylight. This is how it normally goes down this time of year for me. I'll go to a stand I haven't hunted. I can see a long way, CRP, a ditch, low in the topography, kind of more in a ditch or whatever in there. And she's kind of getting dogged by these younger bucks. Normally around November 4th, 5th, 6th, really leading up to the 8th, for me, is I'm watching these younger bucks dog these does. They're this close into estrus. Those bigger bucks are out really checking on who is really ready to breed, and they're kind of moving around in their areas. And then when they hear the commotion, when they hear the running of the grass and the leaves and the footsteps and all this stuff that maybe you're not picking up on, like you're out there grunting, snort, wheezing, rattling, all this stuff. But what these bucks right now are really doing is they're listening for the commotion. And that's really, really hard to emulate and to fool a big buck's ears that have been listening to it every night for the last 2 weeks. My good friend that, rest in peace, Todd Prignitz, came up with a tree thrasher. And he always was convinced that the thrashing of the leaves, and I've never tried one. He passed away before I could do anything with trying it, but he always wanted me to. He was always really convinced in how can I make this leaf noise of this chasing and wrestling and add it to my other calling. You can check it out, tree thrasher. But it is so kind of perplexing to me that in 100 years, 50 years of making calls and stuff, that this is the first time that had been done. But to emulate that sound is really what's happening right now. The reports I'm getting and the things I've seen in the past week is maybe rattling. It never hurts. That if a buck is looking for something to do, he's looking to fight. He's looking to fight. He's looking to see what that fight's about. He's looking to see what they're fighting over. Here's what I got to say about calling right now. If you're out there in the woods, do you believe that you're calling with an easy grunter or some H&S product or some Pimp Daddy grunt call or whatever that you bought at Walmart or Bass Pro or whatever? Do you believe that you can take this little piece of plastic after working your job for 300 days, and for the next 60, you're going to be out there trying to convince a big buck that lives out there and hears these sounds every day? Do you think you're going to be able to convince him? Bro, we can't even convince our wives to do what we think is best. So if you think you're going to outsmart a 5 or 6-year-old by using your little grunt tube or your little, you're crazy. Shut up. Don't educate him. You got the whole week to hunt. It's 70 degrees. He's already mad because it's 70 degrees. He's looking for the hot chick. He's down in these draws. He's running miles to find them, and he's hot. You're not going to be able to outsmart this big buck. And if you think you can, all power. B, I hope you're my neighbor, because you're just going to educate them. So why don't you chill out for a while? Why don't you just relax? Why don't you take in what's happening out there? Don't bring all your calls. Don't do all your stuff. And why don't you listen to the woods and let them tell you what's going on? Because I've been out in the woods for the last three weeks, and I've heard 3 grunts from a 1.5 year old, acting like a jackass, chasing a fawn around for no reason. And then he realized, oh, it's a button buck. It's not even a doe. But he thought everybody else is running around being idiots. I might as well too. That's the only grunt I've heard in the woods. And I haven't even heard a bleat except for fawns talking to their moms. Meow. Meow. Talking to their brothers and sister. Meow. Out in the alfalfa. That's the only communication that I've heard. And if you think you're going to outsmart all these people with your can call, this isn't the time yet. Wait a week. Wait a week. Let them get all feisty up. Let them fight each other till they're dying. Let them get a whole bunch of white tail. Dad joke again. Let them get all wound up. Let them breed about 10 does. Let them get all wound up and testosterone up and get hit by a car. And they're all wound up and they're running all over and they got shot at and they're bleeding and they've been fighting. And that's when you can fool them. The time isn't now. The time is in a week. These bucks are too fat. They're not putting up with any drama, and they're smarter than you. So sit back, use your ears, use your eyes, relax, take it all in. Start educating yourself and being a woodsman rather than just being some knee-booting hunter that goes out 3 times a week. That's what it comes down to. Stuff's ridiculous. Stuff I see out there, everybody posting all these things and whatever. You're not on my property. I don't care what you do. I'm just trying to help you. I'm like a big brother that's going to tell you how it is. I'm not going to tell you what weapon to use. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. But if you want my advice, this brings us on to the next topic. If you want my advice and you want my help, you better take the things I'm saying into consideration. If you don't want them, go to some other podcast, go to some other YouTube. It doesn't matter to me. I'm here to help you. I'm here to give you an update. I'm here to give you advice. I've been there. I've seen that. I've bought a souvenir T-shirt, and I've been hunting whitetails for the last 37 years. I have, 60, 70 deer on a wall from 100 inches to whatever. I come from the day and age in Illinois when we were bow hunting, when not a lot of people were. When you killed 125 inches, you had done something. And back before we had 2 tags for $2 in our state, I'd kill 6 or 7 or 8 a year because that's what you could buy. That's what you could apply for back in the day. Illinois didn't even have a buck thing. The world is changing. The heydays are over. The days of the 5-year-olds are over unless you're going to be disciplined. So you know what I say? Crossbows, slingshots, bombs, nooses, traps, hit them with a truck, whatever's legal, beat them with a crowbar for all I care. Get it out of your system. Shoot all the 4-year-olds. Stack your wall just like mine is down at the barn with 135 to 150 inch whitetails. Stack them, because one day you're going to get sick of shooting those 4-year-olds. So let's get it over with. Let's just get it over with and shoot them all, and then let's push through rather than looking back. Because there's a lot of people mad about crossbows and able-bodied hunters, whatever. Where does able-body really come down to it? If it's my property and it's legal, you guys want me to be legal? I think people got pretty pissed when I wasn't legal. But now I'm legal, and I still can't shoot a crossbow because you know what? I'm a big, strong guy with big, strong arms, and I can pull a bow. Yeah, but every night my arm's asleep and it hurts, and I got to get both shoulders, have surgery on them one day, my back, I get injections. They're not excuses. I only have time to go out and do what I have to do. I don't really want to shoot my bows right now. I want to go out and enjoy nature. And if that deer comes by, I only got two buck tags. I'm going to kill my $2 with whatever I want. Whether I kill a 1.5-year old or a giant, it's my property. It's America. It's called freedom. So shut up if you want to tell other people what to use and what you think. You can have your opinion. You can have your opinion about what I eat. You can have your opinion about you think I should have to wear glasses because I wear contacts. It's not your business. I follow the rules. I tag my animals. I put money into my own farm. I'm going to tag $2 no matter what. And I'm going to go on with my life, and I'm going to hunt with whatever is real. So many people say that crossbows are the reason we don't have any big bucks. Well, I saw some gentlemen this weekend that were from Georgia that were up here, and they showed me pictures from the last couple of years. They have a little bitty property, 50, 60 acres in Peoria County, and there's a 3.5-year-old 147-inch deer laying on the back of the tailgate, and they're about ready to go out in the woods and shoot another 3-year-old, and it's legal. I'm happy for them. I don't have to like it, but I didn't say anything bad to him. I'm like, yeah, man, that's a 3-year-old. How old do you think this one is? I said, he's a superstar too. Man, we've been killing 2 and 3-year-olds, I guess, this whole time. And I'm like, yeah. And one day you'll be sick of it. I don't know. They're from Georgia. They're probably pretty fired up. College football, the rut, coming up here, hunting down there. Uh, who knows if they'll ever stop shooting 3-year-olds, but they might. It's a better chance that they shoot as many 3-year-olds as they want to one day hunt that big daddy than it is to try to tell them what to do, because it's free country. I had a great conversation with them, and I said, they said, do you own this property over here? I said, well, I own it. I own it with my other guys, and yeah, you're not too far. So they're shooting bucks that run on my property. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. At least they're bucked out, and then they won't be shooting the 5 and 6-year-olds. I guess that's the good thing. It's all in what you want to kill, man. It's all in what you want to do. It's freedom. So I didn't always think like this, but I guess the white beard and the gray hairs have made me wiser. I know it talks about it biblically, and you just make decisions. If you want to manage bigger acreage, work harder, make more money, buy land. I'll help you. We'll go buy properties that are next to sanctuaries, that are next to landowners that have the same practices you do. If your farm's just getting beaten down with 2 and 3-year-old killers that are your neighbors, let's sell it. Let's put a couple ponds on it. Let's put a cabin on it. We'll sell it to somebody non-hunting. You can even keep the hunting rights, like you can natural, mineral rights. We'll keep the hunting rights to it. We'll still sell it. You'll get your money back. We'll go buy another one. Let's 1031 it into something else. But don't fight it. It's just progress, man. This isn't our home anyways. That's where you need to know about the gospel. But this takes us on to hunt. I guess, kind of bringing that all to an end in that topic. Where would you hunt right now? Hunt high when it's hot out. This is from Andrew and Chad. Hunt high when it's hot out. This is what they're finding and they're patterning. And then hunt low hunt high when it's cold out, right? So they're finding that if they go on these ridges on the edge of these fields, and it's just all makes sense. It's just backing up what we've been talking about already. When it's cold outside, why not get on those big ridges and watch these bucks walk? And they're just walking more, right? Because they're up. You can travel a ridge faster. You can go from a ridge or a field or a high field. The colder it is, the more they're traveling. The more they're traveling, the higher ground they take. The higher ground they take, the faster they can move through the woods and through all the stuff. And the hotter it is, the lower these bigger bucks and these doe groups seem to be. That's the little breakdown, what we're taking from Chad and Andrew. I just reached out to them and what I've been seeing. But if you break that down, we're saying the same thing. Again, think about that. From one woodlot to the other woodlot, they got 2 ridges running on both sides. That buck in 10 minutes can be through that wood line, running that high ridge, seeing everything and smelling everything, and go to that other piece of property and run that ridge and that high side across the fields. He can hit all those high points and see everything and smell everything in minutes, where when it's hot out, those deer really aren't moving. So that big deer is going to be taking a little drink in the thick stuff. The thick stuff grows at the bottom where all the water is, be in those thickets. They're not leaving those thickets. They're in the lower stuff. We're getting pictures around the lower stuff, and they're not moving from farm to farm. But when they start cruising, when we get this cold weather that's coming, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, this weekend, look out, Midwest. This weekend's going to be fire. The moon is coming off of that full moon. It's getting into that half moon. It's getting into the rising moon. I don't know what crescent or whatever, but I know that moon is out in the middle of the daytime right now. The deer use the moon more than they use the sun. So if they're using the moon and that moon's rising after dark, boy, I think it's just going to go really great into the normal. I really like normal. I don't like the bipolar moon and the temperatures. I really like constant winds, constant moon. I like the movement 2 to 3 hours before dark. I like 2 or 3 hours in the morning. I don't like the midday. I think you have a better chance of not screwing things up when you're hunting those 2 or 3 hours in the evening and the morning, gives you a transition to get in and out. I think it's lining up perfect for the. I always love the 8th and 9th, but that 10th, 11th Veterans Day, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, I think they're just going to be absolutely fantastic, and get your mind right to just go hunt them. Don't stress out. I got my buddy that just called me this morning to wake me up to tell me that he just shot the buck that he was after. I watched this guy get all worked up, drama the last 3 or 4 days, so just wrecked and stressed out. And I'm like, dude, you know where the deer are. I literally am a deer therapist, my wife says. A deer therapist and what'd she say? A deer therapist and a land architecturist food plot expert. This was our dinner conversation the other day. But I got a big he got an arrow and a big boy this morning. And he kept saying, well, he's in 3 different woodlots. What should I do? And I go, well, he's gonna, if I just walk you through it, where this deer wants to be. Wherever he shows you the last place he wants to be. I don't care what the trail camera says. Go post up in there and be there at daylight and sit him out. Sure enough, 48 hours later, he's got an arrow. So he's waiting to find out if he gets him this afternoon. I think he's got a great shot. He's got to do what we're going to talk about right now, which is what to do when you shoot a deer. And then we're going to get out of here. We'll do another one tomorrow. One more thing. Think about these lows where you're like, well, the deer aren't coming onto the food plots. The deer aren't hitting the scrapes. Well, they're hitting them scrapes in the bottom, right? We're going to talk about bottoms again. Why are these deer in the bottom? There's water down there. There's lots of cover. There's lots of browse. They don't need big, heavy corn and beans and turnips and clovers. They don't need this rich stuff right now. So they're going to be kind of in these bottoms, guys. Also, understand that all these acorns on these big flats that they've been walking through since September eating, all of these acorns hit the side of these hills and they roll to the bottoms. So the deer down there just eating brown leaves, maples, oaks, they're just eating the brown leaves, eating them like popcorn. They're browsing on the little buds and the green leaves off of all this stuff that's growing down by the water in the bottoms. And they're making rubs and scrapes along all this rich, stinky kind of dirt down there. The does that are coming into estrus, they're smelling down in these thickets and the wind's not really taking them up out of there. And then they're eating these acorns that have rolled down the hill. They're having a great little time down in Sodom and Gomorrah type, back in the day type stuff down there. And there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of deer stuff are going on. There's a lot of baby deer being made right now. And then as soon as it gets cold, they're going to get on these high ridges and they're going to get on these high fields and they're going to get back on the edges of these fields and they're going to be running and gunning, trying to beat people's butts, trying to take their does and trying to take what they think is theirs. And it's no different than what's happening in the world today. But maybe the deer are a little more aggro than most of the men out there. They're not wearing skinny jeans. They don't have their hair in a bun, and they're not voting for people that can't lead us to go get anything but ice cream. They're voting for the people that are going to not want wars, and they're going to be making smart business decisions like this country needs. Listen, it's just business. What's best for the people? Well, we need a country where you can afford gas and afford food, and the people that want more food and want people that want more gas, let's figure out a way for those people to have the opportunity to go split wood and go do work and go work with our muscles and go be that way. Go have the freedom to shoot a crossbow and work at a steel mill or own a business. Let us go work. We're men. We're Americans. Let us go work. Let us go make money and let us keep our money. Booyah. That's what I'm talking about. That's the hot take on this, man. That's what's going on right now on November 6th. Now, some stories right now on deer shots. We were talking a little bit about it today. My buddy shot at a deer. He was chasing does. He stopped for a second. He let the arrow go. The arrow goes in. It goes in mid-ship behind the ribs. The buck spun, and it took a big, flat, high, 2 inches to 2.5 expandable broadhead behind the ribs in the guts. A lot of people will freak out because they're like, that's a horrible shot. You know what? We're playing a blood sport here. If you're going to go to kill an animal, it's a lethal shot. It's in the guts. It's a big cutting broadhead. If you leave the deer alone, it'll be dead 6 hours from now. He's a little further back than I think. I told him 8 hours. I told him 12 hours. If we were into the most ethical killing that we can, all of us would gun hunt and all of us would shoot deer at 30 yards and under, and we would only hunt field edges. Let's be real. But since we're not out there to do that, we're hunting with pointy sticks with really sharp rocks and metal material on the end with a string and some pressure on some limbs. That's really just a glorified, stick and string. So if we're doing that already, we have to accept the responsibility that we will hit them bad and we won't hit them both lungs. So I'm going to tell you, after all these years of shooting these deer and losing these deer and getting these deer and watching what I've watched at outfitters, watching what I've watched with my friends and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tracks with dogs across some of the craziest stuff on the planet, I'm going to tell you the rule. For me, I have gotten 25 or 30 messages in the last 48 hours from people that have shot big bucks, people that have shot does with a bow and arrow, that have shot them in the shoulder, instantly telling me that they got 3 inches of penetration, the buck ran off, and the blood went for 100 and 150 yards. Another example is I shot him, arrow went through the guts. I got down, looked at my arrow, smelled gut material, tracked him that night, can't find him. Doe. I got down, I tracked this doe. I think I hit her further back than I thought, and I went, what do I do? Do I get a dog or whatever? I can't help you unless you're listening to the heeded warning. You heed this warning. If you're not listening to what I'm about ready to tell you, I'm just so worked up about this subject, not because I care, but because it's such a common thing. Put your pride down for a second, stop being an idiot, and just soak this in for a second. Now, get mad at me. I called you an idiot. Oh, I've done this before. I've done it. I'm the idiot. I've learned from me being an idiot. I have to remind myself because I make mistakes. I am not perfect. This is me teaching you or trying to help my friends, the phone calls I have all night long that my wife puts up with of me walking people through with question number 1. Okay, very important. It's not how far the shot was. So stop asking people that. It clearly was close enough for them to kill it. Don't ask people that. And if you have to tell your friends and you feel embarrassed that you shot at a deer at 50 or 60 or 70 or whatever, I've killed him at 130 yards. I've killed him at 100 yards. I've killed him at 80 yards with my bow. am much more comfortable with my bow than a crossbow. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how far. So don't ask them, how far was it? Did you find it? How far was it? Stop it. Say, is there any way I can help? Let's break it down. I shot at the deer. The deer either ducked at 20 or ducked at 50 or moved at 20 or moved at 50. They do the same stuff. It doesn't matter how far it is. It doesn't really, in my opinion, up the increased kill ratio, whether it's at 50 or 20. I've watched them do the same thing, and I've watched more people mess up at 20 than they have at 50. They concentrate more when they're shooting further. They normally aim in the middle of the body and the liver at 50 and 60 rather than at 20 yards where they hit them in the shoulder. I would love to know on one hand how many people try to shoot through a shoulder blade, which there's not really anything on the other side of the shoulder blade, or shoot them in the middle in the guts and find them at 50 yards or 60 yards rather than up close and personal. I watch them duck at 20 yards. I watch them duck at 50 yards. So, what do you do? First question I ask them, what did you do? Like that. Okay, great. Did you pick up your arrow? Yeah. I walked up there and I picked up my arrow. Well, most of the time, if you were to gut shoot an animal and you didn't watch him fall, if you're going to double lung him, most of the time you either watch him fall or you see blood coming out and can see blood from your stand. That's the truth. If you don't see them fall and you don't 100% know they crashed right there on a dead run, crashed, and you heard a crash and you know they're dead, do yourself a favor, your friends a favor, your wife a favor, your boss a favor. Back out, like sneak out of the tree and get out of there. Don't look for your arrow. The minute you walk toward where you shot the deer, your odds on finding the deer 50% instantly. You don't want to believe me? Don't. I don't care. Go to another podcast. 50% instantly when you walk toward where you shot it. If you creep out of your stand and you go get something to eat and you go get out of there, you go hug your kids or take your girlfriend to dinner, I don't care how distraught you are. I don't care how big a deer it was. I don't care if it was a little fawn you shot for meat. I don't care. You're still playing a blood sport. You owe it to the animal, and you made a shot. And if the deer's dead, the deer's dead. If the deer's not dead and it didn't crash, it's going to die if you shot it in the guts. If it's more mortally wounded, don't go pick up your arrow. Just go out to your truck, play on Facebook for a little bit, creep back in if you have to, and have the discipline to not go any further than your arrow. If you missed, you'll still determine that you missed 6 hours later. So for me, it's a 6 hour wait. If you know and see the arrow go one lung, liver, and out, wait 6 hours. That buck or that doe could have gone in there 40, 50 yards and laid down and is still laying there, and you crept out, that deer is going to be laying there. Coyotes might get it, but we're playing a blood sport here. You should have made a better shot. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. But if you jump it, your odds cut in half again. 20 to 25 to 30% recovery. You owe it to yourself. So here's what I'm going to recommend. If you're shooting a broadhead, shoot the biggest 2-blade expandable broadhead that you feel that you can use. I still use, not paid. I have to buy my broadheads when I can find them. And if anybody has any Rage Extremes, I'll buy them off you that still use the collar. I use the collared Rage Extreme broadheads, the red one with the chisel tip or the yellow one with the cut on impact. They're super sharp. And I don't use the hypodermics, but I will use the tripans. I use the collar. I make sure that I put the collar on right. And when I shoot that animal, I know that sword, that blade, is 2.5 plus inches going into that animal. And there's nowhere on that body, behind that shoulder, below that spine, that I can't stick that arrow in there 8 inches and pull it out, that thing's going to live longer than 6 hours. That's just, for me, it's proved to be 100% true. Now, if I shoot this animal and I don't watch it fall, I wait 6 hours before even going back and grabbing my arrow. Now, in some cases, when you can see quite a ways and you've got the wind, you can get down and the arrow's 20 yards, go grab the arrow and run, just slip out of there, get out. But if you can't see your arrow right there and you can't see around you, don't go nowhere. Period. Do yourself a favor. Wait at least an hour. But I'm telling you, 6 hours, you're going to walk to that deer and you're going to be so excited and you're going to save yourself a hassle. And one day you might learn. So for me, it's a big, giant, cutting, expandable broadhead. It doesn't matter if it's like a Grim Reaper. It doesn't matter if it's the Raven broadhead. It doesn't matter if it's a Rage. It doesn't matter if it's a Bomar Gator. It doesn't matter if it's a, Spitfire. It doesn't matter, but something big and super cutting, and your money. Shoot the deer in the back of the lungs and liver if you're scared to hit that shoulder. That deer, and with a liver shot and popping the diaphragm, is one of the most lethal things on the planet with a big cutting expandable. I'm telling you. And if you don't like what I'm saying, that's okay. We can have a conversation about it. But I'm telling you, over thousands of deer I've watched die, mine and other people's, Those giant cutting two blade expandables are just absolutely devastating. If you leave the pressure off the wounded animal, you will find them. The other day, we had a young man, 14 years old, one of our crew, out hunting one of the properties I set up. He had an 8.5-year-old giant come out of the brush. He was hunting with his dad. It came by. He had a shot right at last shooting light. He put it on him. He squeezed the trigger, hit the deer in the shoulder blade. They don't go get the arrow. They know the arrow's still in the animal. They back out. We're all a group, so called, messaged, we're just going to stay out. Next day, 12 hours later, they take a dog in there. Why? Because they were friends with the guy that does the dog, and it would be fun. And this is a young man's third deer, and it's a giant. And they go in the brush, and they're going through the grass or whatever. They go 80 yards, and there's this buck bedded, and it jumps up out of the grass and takes off running, but its shoulder is absolutely destroyed, and the broadhead then falls out, and the deer starts bleeding, and they kind of group text, and I'm like, yo. And Chad was the same way. And I've beat this into Chad's head, like, just back out, let that thing die. So they back out, they don't stay on it. It starts bleeding again. Just like a shoulder hit, you'll get 3 inches of penetration, sometimes 6 inches penetration if it's a big deer, and depending on how big the cut is. And the arrow falls out and starts bleeding again. There's blood all over, and it looks like it's lost so much blood, but really, it's no more than this water bottle. At the end of the day, after all these pools and all this stuff, it's like having a bloody nose and realizing that you're not dying. It just looks like a lot of blood. And so they back out, and I'm like, listen, you might as well wait a whole nother day for us to go back in there. So the whole group goes back in there. Deer's still alive, but it's spent like a day and a half, and it just hasn't gone anywhere because the shoulder's broken. It's hot, and it's kind of in this low area, and it's just hanging out. Well, they end up being able to make a move on it, and they get this deer shot again and killed because they just didn't stay on the trail and push it. They let the deer run off and bed down 80 yards from where it was shot. They gave it an entire evening, and that deer was stoved up and couldn't hardly move. Then when they did jump it, they backed out again and let that deer go bed again. So second bed, and then they were able to locate it and get in and get another shot on it. So that's just a testament to being patient and being educated and being smart, not letting emotions take over. And this is a young man. What he learned in that was he'll take for the rest of his life. He learned patience and being responsible as a hunter to know that there are possibilities. 1, never giving up. Number 2, just being smart about it. And he personally was messaging me, do you think we'll find it? And I said, buddy, the longer you leave it, the more chance that the deer won't run off into the next county, and we're going to see it again on camera, and you're going to be able to kill it, because from the broadhead only going in 3 inches, the description that you gave me, and as fast as that deer bedded down, and that you gave him 12 to 14 hours and he's not dead, it's a shoulder hit. Just let him heal and get up, and you have to continue to follow. But if you're following 2 days later that blood trail, and you find and you take the blood to the end, you owe it to the animal to do that. But you gave him enough time to relax and start either healing or start dying, right? And what a great story that is. My deer, I shot and hit a limb, or I just made a bad shot in all the excitement, and I hit it above the white, right above his tallywhacker, and through the guts, and the deer ran 30 yards. And I concentrate on telling people to watch and see if the tail's down, watch and see if the tail's flickering, watch and see what the deer does. And this deer stood there, no tail flickering, tail completely tucked, very hurt, hunched up. And I watched that deer bed down. He got up, there wasn't much blood, but I went at the 6-hour mark to try to just see my arrow. So I went at the 6-hour mark to see where my arrow was, found my luminoc lit in the grass, realized there wasn't a lot of blood, still smelled very intestine-y, gutty. I think there's some gut check strips that if you're coming up north or you're hunting and you want to keep them in your pack, I think you wipe it on the arrow to see if it's gut material. And if it's gut material, that's a dead deer. Just leave it. Plenty of time to expire. I'm looking at getting some of them. So if that guy's listening, we can do a review on it, or I can buy some. I just don't know where. I saw it on, I've been watching it for a little bit, but they make a lot of sense, maybe to carry in my truck. As many friends that I'll be tracking deer for and be a part of here in the future. And so that's one way to look at it. My deer was only 80 yards from his bed that I originally saw him lay down. He got up at some time and took off, and it took him probably 12 hours to die, but he didn't go over 150 yards. I normally say if you shoot the deer and you hit him in the lungs, you're gonna know it immediately. There's gonna be blood spray, like Uncle Ted says, pump station disconnect, where it explodes and there's blood pressurized everywhere. If not, you're gonna see that there's blood, there's material on your arrow, and at that 6 hour mark, you can determine whether you want to continue to go or back out and pick them up in the morning. If you do those little rules, your life's going to be a lot less stressful. You're going to stress a little bit, but you're going to know you're doing the right thing. So I can get pretty fired up about it. I'll be willing to give you a attaboy and a props. And if you're feeling down, but you're doing what I ask you to do for yourself and for, I don't know, probably for the best of the animal and yourself, message me. I'll give you an old attaboy and give you ideas and talk you off the ledge and be a deer therapist. As long as you're doing what we ask, right? Let's be a team. If you shoot the deer and you don't watch it fall, back out. We'll go get the arrow 6 hours later and keep going. So I'll let you know how it ends up with the deer that shot back, but the deer was spinning, so I think it hit way back in front of the hip and went up into him. Don't be scared to put one in the guts and run up into the lungs if it's hard quartering away. But that close quartering, toward you stuff, stay away from those shots. Stay away from them. They just end really, really bad. They just end really bad. Well, hopefully I have helped you. I will continue to do these as long as life doesn't get in the way. It's November 6th. I'm really looking forward to the deer doing more normal things as the 8th gets here. Go out and hunt. Enjoy yourself. Don't get stressed out. Had a buddy kill a really nice 4-year-old deer that really was a big buck chasing, giant killing, trying to get a giant deer. And it's so nice to just hear that a gentleman was relaxed and enjoyed his morning and shot a really nice deer that he's going to put on the wall. And it was 4. Who cares? I shot a 4.5-year-old this year. If you're going to shoot one, mount it. I can't argue with that. I can't even be mad at that. But there's a lot of guys shooting a lot of little deer, just shoot a lot of little deer. And it's not crossbows that are changing the world. The world is changing, and we're having to, guess at why. I think we're just mad and cynical because our world's changing from stuff we used to know to stuff that we don't know. And that's biblical. Like, find this grace in that, knowing that this isn't our home and you just need to have Jesus in your life. And I think that's what it breaks down to. But I think we need to push forward. Go ahead and shoot the deer that you're going to shoot. Let's get on with it. And then we'll all chase mega deer together and continue to build properties back better. And if you're building properties back better, you're going to be less apt to just shoot deer to shoot them. So put some integrity into the work of making the habitat, conservation, and the deer food and the deer structure, and you'll be less apt to shoot deer. You'll shoot just enough to eat and just enough to trip that trigger of dopamine, that manliness to put a buck on the wall. And I think it's all in good. I think it's all in good in the future. And I got some crazy stories I'll talk about this week about a guy that was mad because the new landowner his kids put purple paint on the fence lines doing legal duty and F-bombing them and yelling at them and the crazy stuff that happened at deer camp this last week. And I got a bunch of wild stories for you. So hopefully you guys like this. Hopefully you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Chris Brackett's Land Life. And then look up Chris Brackett's Land Life podcast. And we'll just keep taking you on a journey and adventure. But hopefully this helps you on where to hunt and how to hunt. Don't trust those trail cameras right now. Go be the trail camera. Go be in the woods. It's time to invade your spots. Play the wind. And big shout out to Herman Brothers Realty, where I work. I'm a broker in Illinois. I help you buy land anywhere across the country. I'd love to consult for you. And if you need help right now looking at a property, how to get onto a big buck, go to whitetaillandlife.com, and we can do a face-to-face over this desk on this computer right now, and I'll help you strategize on your property. We charge by the hour. We can do them after dark or in the middle of the day or whatever's comfortable for you. And then I help you just kind of look at your property, how you're invading it, how to not, how to take other things into consideration. I just help you. So whitetaillandlife.com, look that up, and we will see you tomorrow. Hopefully that helped. Good luck. Shoot them in the back of the lungs, the liver. Remember, that part doesn't duck. The front part of the deer ducks. And it's better to shoot a deer with his head up than his head down. They'll duck faster when his head's down. And man, I just love telling you guys stuff. I'm blessed to do this. Peace out, y'all.